and welcome to the Project. I'm Cary, and Kelly's sitting behind the camera right now. And today we are visiting Ben Stimpson, who is a therapist specializing in the LGBTQ2S+ community. And they also operate a YouTube channel called Paduka Wellness. And we have had the opportunity to be on Ben's channel, and now we are honored to have them stay and be on our channel as well, and offer up their story, as you're going to hear in the future, and this little opportunity to talk a little bit about therapy.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So welcome, Ben.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about the therapy that you do, just generally.
Absolutely. So I'm a therapist. I'm trained in psychotherapy. I'm a counselor here in Ontario. The training that I received was in spiritual psychotherapy, which is more holistic for those who are watching this and in the know, transpersonal and Jungian. That's really just a very kind of puffed up way of saying narrative. So I work with stories. I work with the stories that people tell themselves, the stories that people have taken on, and the stories that people live within. So really, the therapy I work with is kind of bringing somebody into relationship with their own story and themselves.
Mm-hmm. So what in doing the channel, what's the intersection of that being like in being able to tell those stories through your channel and working in the therapy area?
Absolutely. So storytelling has been a big part of my own journey, and so I wanted to create a space of the podcast where people would be able to explore their story and tell their story. We've seen so many storytelling kind of venues. Your channel, for example. I'm also thinking of like Oprah's Masterclass, where people, just by telling their story and showing their life and talking about the wisdom that they've received and the insight that they've gained from themselves, other people can learn about themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So often it is easier for people to learn about themselves by seeing it out external to themselves. That's why people have superheroes, why people have personal heroes, why people love literature, because they can see themselves in those characters.
Absolutely. I know when we started this channel, that was a big thing for Kelly and I, was trying to find ourselves in other stories, and there were not a lot out there. So thank you for doing your channel. And
absolutely.
Yeah. What are some of the recurring themes maybe that you see in therapy when dealing perhaps with trans or non-binary clients?
It's one of those situations where, because of the marginalization that our community faces, a great deal of the work is trauma. A lot of trauma. People being, especially older people who came out maybe a decade or more ago, being rejected from their families, being rejected in society, trauma, physical trauma, sexual abuse trauma often. And so how people develop coping mechanisms around that trauma, how they present in the world, how they want to present in the world, all of those. But I'm noticing a shift now. It's very generational to younger individuals are more open. And when I say younger, I'm talking about the 25 and younger range. There's a real openness in that younger subculture to explore, to not make a big deal around identity in that way, and not make a big deal around gender roles and whatnot. And so for that particular population, they're going through many of the same things that most kids of that age go through. It's just got a gendered layer on top. There's a lot more support in that community than there is perhaps for individuals like myself and us who are older.
Thank you for including me in your age range, because I think I'm a little bit of
Well, I'm at that age now where I have friends who are like 15 years older than me, 10 years younger than me. I have no idea where I fit half the time. But yeah, I would say trauma, but it's a different form. So, I mean, that comes up differently for everybody. But I also think that for a lot of people in general in society, trauma is a big thing right now.
Do you see a big difference between the younger people that are coming and the older people? I know we have noticed in talking with people that the culture that was there when people grew up very much affects the way they had to deal with being trans, right? Do you see the same kind of thing in therapy?
Oh, completely. And I mean, being in the community, I haven't had as many younger clients because I do tend to focus. There's a certain age range that has come to me so far. But I do see from colleagues and a few clients that I have, and also service agencies, that there is a different cultural connection to labels and a real interest in exploring and creating and forming in new labels. Labels that perhaps even 10 years ago, 15 years ago would have just been general for vast numbers of different experiences, are now being challenged and extended and expanded. And so I see there's a lot more of an emphasis in that younger crowd to explore in ways that I think older people, because of culture and society when they were growing up, wouldn't have had the opportunity. But I also realize that what younger people are doing now and have the ability to do now is really built off of the back of what came 10, 15, 20, 40, even 50 years ago.
So for a lot of us in the trans community, I'm just trying to figure this out and deal with it. We definitely need to seek out therapy of some kind, even if it's just to be able to talk things out. What kinds of things do you suggest people perhaps look for if they're really struggling with this in themselves and trying to find themselves? So from that perspective, specifically, what kinds of things do you think they should look for from a therapist? So what questions should they ask?
It's an unfortunate situation that right now there is still a great deal of misunderstanding, ignorance, whether that be willful or just ignorance on topics. A lot of bias still. There are a lot of LGBT and queer therapists in Ontario, and actually looking even in social work. I know so many trans social workers who went into social work because they came up through the foster system, or they went through the medical system, even sometimes the legal system, and they were abused and had a horrible experience, and so they want to go into those systems to help. When it comes to therapy, I would say look for somebody who is going to be able to hold space for you. There are a lot of LGBT therapists now. Myself in Kitchener here, there are quite a few of us actually. In Toronto, there's a large population. I feel like look for the type of therapist who you can trust. Whether that is somebody who looks like you, sounds like you, is of a similar community to you. A lot of my queer clients often say the reason that they found me and was interested in working with me is because they don't want to have to explain. They feel the exhaustion of constantly having to explain and educate people on something that somebody with lived experience or something similar to them can just go with. And then we can work on the actual work and not having to explain what, AFAB is or FTM or whatever, right? Yeah.
I know I've been through 3 therapists myself, and I know I found with the first couple, I thought sometimes I was educating them, and that's not really where you want to be with a therapist. You said holding space, and that's a term that maybe people aren't necessarily familiar with. Can you expand on that? What is that?
Absolutely. Holding space is the ability to allow somebody's story to fill up the space that you're in. Right? Holding space is being able to sit with somebody without judgment, without turning it into something about yourself, and to be able to allow them to process what they're processing without needing to give a solution or to make your own feelings that are coming up feel better. It's a developed skill. I'll be honest. It's a developed skill. But I feel people will know what holding space is when they think of people in their life who will just sit with them and listen without judgment and without criticism and without jumping to a solution. People want to talk, and they want to talk about their story, and they want to talk about their frustrations without being given an answer, because they know what the answer is. They just need to work through it, right? Yeah.
And that's why I'm doing an interview and I'm not a therapist. So I just want to thank you, Ben, for being here, and make sure you see Ben's story as well, which will also be on our channel. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us a little bit of an insight today about therapy.
Thank you. And can I just make a comment? Because I work with narrative therapy, one of the reasons why I wanted you both on my podcast originally was because you were working with story. And I already instinctively know that there are people who are watching your channel and listening to the stories of the people that you have invited onto your show, and your own stories as well, and seeing themselves in your story, and it's already helping. In fact, I often give the transcanadaproject out to my therapist colleagues, whether they're queer, whether they're LGBT, or whether they're straight, cis, hetero, in order to not only educate them, but also to give on to clients. One of the most powerful things that somebody can often do is to connect their own story with somebody else's example. So I want to thank you for putting this project together, because it is important and you are making strides.
Thank you very much. And we have gained so much from this, just talking to people and learning about ourselves, even just being, we benefit so much from it. We really do. Maybe I'll just put a little plug in too while we're talking about that. If you're watching this and you have a story to share, then please don't be afraid to come out and contact us, and we would love to share your story. The more stories we get out there, the better that is as well, I think, because when you hear one or two good stories, it's like, well, that's a really good story, but it's just an isolated case, right? And it's sort of my goal in the Trans Canada Project to get as many stories as we can and show that we are just real people who happen to be trans, and we're living real lives just like everybody else, and have same struggles and same challenges, same joys, and it's been a real blessing to see that in people and hear the different stories. So again, thank you, Ben. Thank you for the little bit of encouragement to us too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.